Howdy folks, Michelle Glass here. Welcome back to our third installment of our Chapter 22, Lecture 22, Part 1 topic, and our video presentation here is focusing on those special cells of the lymphatic system called lymphocytes. So they're really kind of like the stars of the lymphatic system. Remember, the lymphatic system consists of lymphocytes, lymph, which is the fluid, lymphatic vessels, and then lymphatic tissues, nodes, organs. When talking about lymphocytes, we are talking about white blood cells. So these are cells that we've already talked about to some extent as part of our chapter 19. They are the cells that are really involved in what we can describe as our specific defenses. Specific being the key word here, that's referring to essentially our immune response. This is how our cells can be really particular about what cells they recognize and attack. Now, the lymphocytes are formed during a process called lymphocytopoiesis. So lymphocyte poiesis, formation of lymphocytes. This is beginning in the bone marrow, just like the formation of all of the white blood cells. So remember, you have hemocytoblasts. Hemocytoblasts are going to divide into either myeloid stem cells, which give rise to most of the white blood cells, red blood cells, and platelets, but also hemocytoblasts divide to make lymphoid stem cells. And so that is the lineage that we're looking at here, of course. Those lymphoid stem cells can divide into one of three possible cells. So we're going to see B cells and what are called NK cells being produced and matured in the bone marrow. And then we're going to see our third type of cell called the T cell being matured in the lymph organ called the thymus. So they're called T cells because they're maturing in the thymus. Remember, we talked about the thymus is producing the hormone thymosin, which is going to be important in that maturation of the T cells. The other important thing to pay attention to is once you have a mature T cell and a mature B cell, they are able to mitotically divide. So once you have formed those, they can replicate and make more of themselves throughout your life. The lifespan of your lymphocytes is ranging from 4 years to 20 or more years. So we do see that these are long-lived cells in the body, not like what we see with our other formed elements in the blood. And then we have three major types of lymphocytes, as we've implied already in our discussion of lymphocytopoiesis. We have what are called T cells. Of course, those are forming in the thymus. B cells, which are forming in the bone marrow, and what are called NK cells, which are forming also in the bone marrow. Our T cells are responsible for what's described as cell-mediated immunity. So they're coordinating our immune response. Because T cells are involved with our immune response, they're very specific. So you have T cells already as part of your genetic inheritance that allows you to recognize and attack a whole range of pathogens. In order to be able to have an immune response against a particular pathogen, you have to have T cells already available to you that can be activated. There are 4 important types of T cells. So we have the cytotoxic T cell. It's toxic to cells. It's going to do a direct attack. So boom, 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 okay? Helper T cells, we will see them involved in stimulating both T and B cells. So we'll see their role as we progress in our conversations in the next unit. And then regulatory, or what can also be called suppressor T cells, which are helping to make sure your immune response is moderate, doesn't get out of control. And then finally, we have memory T cells. This is going to be an important aspect of our immune response. Our immune response has memory. So the next time we're exposed to that particular pathogen, we are ready to attack. So we'll see that as we go through specific immunity in the future. Our B cells are another one of our important lymphocytes. We see B cells described as being responsible for humoral immunity, where humor is referring to fluid, so humoral immunity is referring to our body fluids. we see that our B cells, once they're activated, will become plasma cells, and the plasma cells are responsible for production of antibodies. So you might use your bead in the B cell to help you to remember that ultimately it results in antibody production. Of course, B is also because these cells are maturing in the bone marrow. Again, this is very specific. So just like you have to have, millions of different types of T cells in order to be able to mount immune responses to the millions of different types of pathogens you might encounter, the same is true for your B cells. And then finally, we have what are called NK cells. The NK stands for natural killer. These cells are responsible for a nonspecific defense called immune surveillance or immunological surveillance. This is basically the ability to move through the body and identify and destroy any of your cells that are abnormal. So they might be abnormal because they're cancerous, or they might be abnormal because they're infected by a virus. So you'll see both. All right, that's it for now.